Hey, you guys, good morning and welcome to the Ultra Life podcast or whatever time it is that you're listening to this. I am your host, Samantha Nivens, and I am an ultramarathon athlete. I'm a mama of two amazing little boys, and I am a performance coach. I help men and women, entrepreneurs, professionals, and athletes to get in the best shape of their life while they go after that big AF life or business professional goal. In my world, you get to do both. I am all about us having it all, that we can do more than we think, and that we are not done. That is what I consider living an ultra life. So, thank you guys for joining me here today. And this one may be like a short and sweet one, but it just came to me this morning, and I really wanted to share it to hopefully inspire you guys and let you know that you literally, like today, this week, this month, before the end of the year, it's November 13th when I'm recording this 2024. Literally, you could be one choice away from changing your life. And I'm going to share the story of what this one choice was for me. So, literally, like this one book that I read has changed my life dramatically. Like I don't even know how to put into words. Like I want some like really dramatic like scene, and like I'll probably do like an actual video of it sometime, but like I'm just like I just want you to like the depth, and I'm going to share the story, but like the depth here of like when I say change my life, I'm not talking like I went from like a Prius to a Porsche, or I went from like an apartment to a home, or I went from like this home to a really great dream home. Like I'm literally saying I would not be here today. I'm sure I'd be doing something because I'm very driven overall and determined, but like my life would look dramatically different if it wasn't for this one book, you guys. One book changed my life. Okay, so that one book that I read and read over and over and over again is called Born to Run by Christopher McDougall. If I'm saying his name right, I'm probably butchering it. But most of you, if you're in the running world, or even if you aren't, this book, as I always say, it's like the gateway drug to ultra running. There are so many ultra marathon runners that they read this book and they're like, oh my God, I'm doing that. Or that's my next step. That's my next goal. So, and even if you aren't a runner, I want you to like, first and foremost, like take this message for you, because I'm going to relate it to, it's not just about like ultra marathon running. You guys know, if you don't already, your ultra life goal, your ultra goal does not have to be an ultra marathon. You never have to run at all. In fact, I'm not like pushing running or ultra marathons on anyone. I'm sharing that is what changed my life, is this book, and the tool, the vehicle to do that was ultra marathons, right? So your vehicle to get what you want and live your ultra life may look a hell of a lot different than an ultra marathon. So this book is called Born to Run. And honestly, I highly recommend it, even if you are not a runner. It is such a fabulous, well-written book. So well written. I'm an avid reader. If I could turn my computer around right now and you could see there's like 10 books on my nightstand and bookshelves full of books. I am an avid reader. And this book is top 5, top 10 of best books I've ever read in my life. Okay. So highly recommend the book overall. And here is what happened. So this was over 10 years ago now, because I've been here in Asheville for 10 years. It'll be 11 years in January. Crazy. And so I was still smoking at the time. I was still smoking cigarettes. Yes, if you did not know, I actually smoked from the time my first cigarette at 14 years old in the car doing the newspaper. I still remember it. I was in the car doing my newspaper route. I had 2 or maybe 3 at the time, because it was how I was able to like earn money. because my mom had none. And so I was in the car and actually got my first cigarette from my mom. I asked her for one. That's a whole nother story. We won't go down that road. I love her to death and she did the best she could. But I got my first cigarette from my mom in the car when I was doing my newspaper routes, and I was curious about smoking because I had friends that smoked. And I proceeded to smoke on and off for over 10 years until my mid to late 20s there, mid 20s then. And that is when I found Born to Run. I don't know how it landed in my lap, to be honest with you. It was released around that time. And so probably me just being a runner in general, I was like, go figure, or how ironic is that? I was actually still running, and I was training for my second marathon around that time in my mid 20s. I was living in South Florida, and I smoked pretty occasionally, like very rarely. It wasn't like a, pack a day smoker type situation. And I would hide it. Like some of my friends maybe knew or not. Like, I don't know if my running friends actually knew, but I would just hide it, and I would still like smoke occasionally though. And then this book landed in my lap, Born to Run. And I just started eating it up. Like, I remember passing out with like the book on my face, on my chest. Like, I just wanted to read it. I was just like eating it up. Again, really well written, but also the story was essentially about the author. So he had found out about this tribe. Again, I'm going to butcher their names. Taramahu runners in Mexico who essentially like they run, like they don't have cars. They run all over. And that's like a part of their culture and their tribe. And they do it with these like rubber soled sandals that they've made from like old tires. And they drink chia fresca. I think it was like this one beer that was made from like chia seeds, or maybe that's two separate things, like a chia seed drink and beer to like fuel them. And so the author finds this incredible tribe, and he wants to essentially like, he trains to do his first ultramarathon ever. And he's not like a runner necessarily. And you guys, it has been probably over 10 years since I've read this book, so I may be butchering it a little bit. But basically, the author is going to do his first ultramarathon. He like hears about this, and it's like the first time I ever hear the word ultramarathon. I'm like, what the heck is that? Like, people still ask me, well, like, what is an ultramarathon? Which, by the way, it is technically anything over a full marathon. So a full marathon is 26.2 miles, and ultra is any distance over that. So it could be 50K, 40 miles, 50 miles, 100 miles. They go even more nowadays. So that's an ultramarathon. So he is like just, discovering this ultramarathon thing and this tribe. And basically he gets together a crew of one of the best ultra runners out there, Scott Jurek, who at the time was like very like elite in the racing field and ultramarathon sport, like one of the first, I feel like, to really like break through and make a big name for himself and bring ultramarathons like, out from under, like, oh, this is like a thing even. So he's kind of one of like the OGs for the sport. So he got him involved to come run the race. He got some, this other couple, this other boy and girl, like I would say boy and girl, they were like, young adults, like in their 20s, these awesome runners that were just like these free spirits. And he trained himself to run this ultra. And then throughout the story, so you're learning essentially Born to Run is like really about the story. And then you're learning about this incredible tribe that it's like, what? They do this. They just like run miles and miles every single day. Like that's just how they get around and what they do. And you first hear about ultra marathons, like what is this? And he takes you through the depths of like a storyteller would about them. And, I think he talks about Scott Jurek more and him. And so a lot of different context in it, but essentially it was the first time I had ever heard like an ultra marathon. It's the first time I ever heard that word and that was like a thing that people did. And so here I am, a runner. And so like I said, I'd either done my second marathon at this point or I was training for it. I'd done one when I was super young, like maybe 20 or something. And then this would have been my second one, when I was probably like 26-ish at the time. Sorry, guys, I'm like so bad with dates. Mid-20s, maybe late 20s, probably more like mid. Yeah, it was probably like 26, 27, to be honest with you. So I am just like, and you guys know me by now. Like I love a good challenge. And essentially like I was just fascinated by like what the body and mind could do. Like this is possible. Humans can run this far, this long. What? I want that was like my thoughts. I was instantly like, I was drinking the Kool-Aid. I was like 100%, I want to do this. I want to run an ultra marathon. I was just so like, just mind blown. And I also think, I'm kind of like talking this out loud, even sharing with you guys. I also think there was like a part of me with at that time in my life with what I was doing, like still pretty lost and not sure what I was doing with my career. Wasn't in a relationship that was, if I was even still dating this person, like wasn't going anywhere or, was like separated and like was just in this kind of limbo place, maybe we'll call it, where it was like, I almost like needed something to like give me purpose and to go after, which side note, I think just is like good to hear. And maybe in my story, it's like when we don't have a purpose and big AF goals to go after and actually have a challenge in our lives, we will just coast. That's what I was doing. I was totally like essentially kind of on autopilot, just coasting, just being like, I don't know, well, just, I don't know, just living life. Right. I mean, yeah, I was going for the marathon. I was doing something, but that wasn't it that really like captivated me. And obviously I was still smoking, so it wasn't enough. But ultra marathons, whew, like the idea lit me up. They still light me up of like, what the heck is possible for us in our bodies? So I decided, and I was going to run an ultra marathon, and I picked that one. And so again, I was living in South Florida at the time. So I wanted a race that I could drive to and that was, close to home essentially. So I found the Keys 50 miler. They have a 50K, maybe 50 miler and 100 mile. You can choose which one, and a relay. I chose the 50 miler to be my first ultra marathon ever. And this is so funny now because if any of you guys know me, you know that I love running in the heat and like summer. Like I love heat races. It's like my jam. It's my superpower. And so many people are like afraid or hate running in the heat or in the sun. And I just got so used to it. That will be another podcast for another day, actually, how I actually flipped a switch to be able to run in the heat anytime, any day, anywhere. It doesn't matter. I don't care if it's 100 degrees, humid. I don't care. I can run in it and I like it. That's another podcast episode I will share with you guys. But so I picked this race and I remember reading about it too. It was in May. It was a May race. So, and actually I want to, is that 2019? Okay. I cannot remember the date, but it was a May race. So imagine just May in the Keys, like the southernmost point of Florida, maybe even the United States. For sure on the East Coast, I would say. So the Florida Keys in May. Hot, right? Like that's what you would think. You're like, what? Um, but I wasn't afraid of the heat because I had already told you guys I'd flipped a switch, so I was able to run in it. And people like liken the race to Badwater. If you've, I know this is like ultra talk, but Badwater is a 135-mile race, like the hottest race on the planet, maybe, or it's like essentially in Death Valley in Nevada, California, and you run 135 miles to where like the blacktop literally can like melt your shoes. It's that hot there for this race. So they kind of likened the Keys race to that. And me being me and like loving a good challenge and being like, yeah, let's go. So for all those reasons, I chose the Keys 50 miler. And to be honest, well, and I know I also, so the 50K didn't feel like, because the 50K is essentially like 30 miles-ish, give or take, depending on the race. That one didn't feel like as much of a stretch, like to me, even though I do love to do that distance all the time now. But that one didn't feel like enough of a stretch to me, even though it's technically an ultra. And 100 miles felt like too far of a stretch. I was like, oh, I think I'm going to start somewhere in the middle and do a 50-mile race for my first ultra. So also just good to see there for you guys, like, hopefully as you're like hearing this, like thinking about your ultra life goal, like whatever that is, you want to find that sweet spot when it's you're first starting. And honestly, as you grow, so now I've obviously done ultra marathons for over 10 years now. I found a purpose. I found my sport. I found so much joy, so much fun, a community, all these other things. I've now done it for 10 years. But each time, every single race, most generally, there's a sweet spot. There's a formula of how I pick what races I do based on my strengths or based on what I believe is possible. That's a stretch. It's a stretch. Like running 50 miles also felt a little crazy. Like, what? Crazy. But 100 miles was like, I just could not even fathom it at that point, right? So I found that sweet spot of a goal for me. So what is that for you guys when you're considering what your ultra life goal is like, you don't want to just be like, well, I mean, I could probably do this if I stretched a little bit. And you don't want to take it to where like, you just cannot even believe it, not for a second. You want to find that sweet spot. Okay. So that's why I chose 50 miles. It felt like doable, yet really stretching and challenging me, which is what I wanted. So, yeah, did that race in May. And I obviously had a base of running. And I think I trained for like 6 months or so. Honestly, it'd be really fun to like look back and see if I can find any kind of journals or training logs. I do not even know exactly what my training looked like then, but I'm almost positive it was about 6 months. And completed the race. Took me 12 hours and some minutes to run the 50 miles, my first ultra marathon. I had a blast and I learned many lessons that day. That will be a whole nother podcast. Again, like I can specifically go into the details of that race, the challenges that happened very quickly within the first 7 miles and then even throughout, but I still kept going and I finished and I was hooked. And I was totally hooked. This is just side note too. I will have like, I love to like share like my reasoning for ultra marathons and actually like how fun they can be. So if it's ever an interest of yours, you need to reach out and let me know and let's have a conversation because they are not as intimidating or so hard and challenging or take so much time and effort to train. Yeah, I got you. This is what I do. Whether it's for an ultra marathon, it's for your business, it's for a life goal, it's for your health goals. I'm queen of simple and potent AF to get the results that you want. Okay. So yeah, so I was just totally hooked from there and found my next ultra, which actually was a 50K trail race in North Georgia. And that was that same year later in the fall. And I picked that race because I wanted to start running trails. A lot of the ultra runners, was more trail races than like road races. It's like a little bit of a different community and culture than like marathons and half marathon people. And I've always loved the mountains, AKA why I'm now here in Asheville. I love the fall. It was early November, either the first or second weekend in November. And just my first time in North Georgia. And actually the reason I moved up to Asheville is from that trip. So I might stop this because this is like multiple stories in one, but essentially that was my second ultramarathon, a 50K. I think that one took me around 7 hours because it was also trail. So there was actual elevation. And remember, I lived in flat South Florida. So I was trying to run the bridge to train for that one, but you can only do so much. And essentially like the rest is history from there. I have been doing ultramarathons ever since. And let's also go back to, I was smoking. I finally quit smoking because of ultramarathons. So that was a huge, major life-changing event. I've now been an ultramarathon runner, which is that in itself has literally changed who I am and my life, and will continue to. I quit smoking. I also then decided that while I was still in Florida, I actually started my master's for exercise science and health promotion because I was like, I didn't know exactly what I was going to do with that, to be honest with you. I never wanted to be like a strength and conditioning coach, although that was like, this is over 10 years ago. This is like before coaching was a thing. So I just was like, I know I'm meant to be in this field of like health and fitness. I'm done with the smoking thing. I'm doing this ultramarathon thing. Like I'm going all in. I'm going to start going for my master's in exercise science. I'll figure it out along the way. And I fucking did. So that is, and this, you guys, this all started from reading one book. One book is how it changed my life. Literally, and is going to continue to change my life, compounding, right? So here in my story, I want you to take away from this. What can you start saying yes to? Whether it's books to read, whether it's podcasts to listen to, it's a YouTube video to watch, it's talking to the person on the trail, or you're walking, or the person at the coffee shop, actually like opening yourself to saying yes, or opening yourself to opportunities to allow for the universe, for God, for your one book to change your life to fall into your lap. And the way that we do this is like, I was already a reader and I was running a little bit, right? But I definitely wasn't where I wanted to be by any means. But I saw this book and I said yes. I read the book. And actually, I listened to that thing on audiobook, I don't know, like 8 to 10 times. At that point in time, I had read the book multiple times and I listened to it in audio multiple times because I was just like so enamored and it was written so well. So, but I was open and available to like that book and to reading it and to taking the time to do it. And there have been many other things in my life, whether it's been a book, whether it's been a podcast, whether it's been a coaching call, like one sentence. I feel like there's, I can't remember what it is right now, but or one conversation. There might be like one person you run into in the coffee shop. And instead of just looking at your phone and just kind of being tired and like telling the person what you want, here's, I want this bagel and this coffee. And then you just kind of look down the whole time and don't engage, versus the person, that realtor that you need or want in your life, that business owner that could be your next partner, the relationship that you want to have, your dream partner, your next client. your next babysitter or nanny, like the next person that tells you, hey, I'm an ultra marathon runner, whatever version of that is for you, they work out and the gym's right down the street and you've been wanting to go to the gym. And because you looked up from your phone and you were open to opportunities and you were experiencing the world, that came to you. You got that one nugget, that one conversation that could change your life. So I just want to offer that. Number one, be open to the opportunities and say yes to things. We have to say yes to so many things. I don't know how many books I read, thousands of books probably, quite literally, before I read Born to Run. And I definitely had books that helped, form me. But that one, I just can nail on the head, like it changed my life, right? So I had to say yes to many, many books before that. So start saying yes to more things and more opportunities that resonate with you, right? I didn't read a book on golf because I was not a golfer, still not necessarily. So, right? Say yes to more opportunities. Be open to the opportunities. Put yourself in a position to have opportunities, right? We have the choice to do this. And then the second thing that I want to say about this, if you're not getting what I'm putting down already, is that it just takes one book, one conversation, one podcast. It doesn't, that's all that is needed to literally change your life in a massive, massive way. So why wouldn't you say yes and open yourself to more opportunities for that one moment? And and again, I've had multiple moments of things that have just literally, like I was on this track and then had one conversation, got one, coaching. Oh, it's happened multiple times in this last week. And I go, boop, pivot. Never, ever, ever did I continue going down that path in that way that could have cost me years of my life, years of trial and error, years of experimenting. And instead, I got the one coaching that I needed, or I heard the one thing from the podcast and I was like, pew, new direction, changed my life. So I think I really am just trying to share. I think so many times we think, oh, it's going to take so much time, to change my life, or it's going to take so much time and effort and, and going through challenging, hard things. And don't get me wrong, this is life and we want to play that game, right? You wouldn't know the joy if you didn't have the pain. So we want challenges. We want that. And just know, take off the weight of it. Like you could literally have a conversation with somebody today and it could change your life. You could read a book this weekend and it could change your life. Just know that's available to you. There is hope. There are miracles. There is magic in this life. There are fun opportunities and things that can literally create change in an instant. So just be open and available to that versus maybe this epically long timeline you have of like, oh, it's so linear and it's going to take forever and ever and ever and ever and ever and ever and ever and ever. Instead of you could have a life-changing moment and change today or tomorrow. Okay. So be open and available to all the magic, to the one thing that can change your life, and saying yes to all the things that are resonating and being open to those opportunities to be able to have the one life-changing moment. We've got to start saying yes to more things to do that. All right, you guys, this was fun walking down memory lane a little bit here and sharing this story with you guys. I hope you loved it. I hope it resonates. If it does, please let me know. You can find me on Instagram at Samantha Nivens, my full name. Nivens is Nivens. Tag me or DM me. Let me know your thoughts or if you've had a similar experience. And then if you would, I would super appreciate it if you leave a 5-star rating and review for the podcast. really helps to get the word out and spread the love and let other people know what's possible for their lives by sharing episodes like this. So thank you guys, and I will see you again soon. Bye.